Hello again. Have you enjoyed our EYFS at Home Pets Day? I hope you have. Are you ready to snuggle down for our bedtime story? This is a story all about pets that I've written especially for you. It's called Mr. Dandelion and His Pets. Shall we begin? Mr. Dandelion has 3 pets. Scruffy the dog, Bob the cat, and Silver the rabbit. Mr. Dandelion is always rushing about, rushing. He's always in a hurry, he's always running late, and he's just always going, zooming, here, there, and everywhere. Well, one day, Mr. Dandelion was rushing around as usual, and he was rushing so much that when it was time to feed his pets, he got it all muddled up. He was rushing. He picked up a bone and he opened Silver's hutch and he put the bone in for Silver the rabbit's breakfast. And then he got a carrot and he gave it to Bob the cat. I don't think that's right, do you? And then he grabbed the collar and lead and off he dashed for the morning walk. Well, when he went out, Mr. Dandelion saw his neighbour, Mr. Tulip. And Mr. Tulip said, "Good morning, Mr. Dandelion." And then he looked very surprised. Mr. Dandelion said, "Good morning" to Mr. Tulip, and he was a bit confused because he wasn't sure why Mr. Tulip looked so surprised. Well, he carried on his walk. And then he met the milkman. The milkman said, "Good morning" to Mr. Dandelion, and then he looked really surprised. Mr. Dandelion nodded his head and said good morning, but he couldn't understand why the milkman looked so surprised. Well, then Mr. Dandelion got to the park and he saw another friend. He waved, and as they got closer, his friend said good morning to Mr. Dandelion, and then he looked very surprised. Well, you know Mr. Dandelion is always rushing, so he didn't have time to stop and talk to his friend. So he said good morning and continued on his walk. He walked all the way around the park and then he got back home. He got his key out of his pocket and he opened the door. And when he opened the door, do you know who was there sitting looking up at Mr. Dandelion? It was Scruffy the dog. Wow, now it was Mr. Dandelion's turn to look surprised. Scruffy the dog? And he looked at the lead in his hand. And he looked all the way down the lead to see who was at the other end. Who do you think was at the other end of the lead? It was Bob the cat. Mr. Dandelion had been in such a rush. He wasn't paying attention and he'd put the collar on Bob the cat, clipped on the lead and dashed off for his walk. Well, no wonder the neighbour Mr. Tulip had looked so surprised. No wonder the milkman had looked so surprised. And no wonder Mr. Dandelion's friend in the park had also looked so surprised. Well, Mr. Dandelion had a laugh and said to himself, I need to stop rushing around. So he got Scruffy and put the collar and lead on Scruffy, and he noticed that in Bob the cat's bowl there was a carrot, and he thought, that's not right. So he gave Bob the cat his cat meat. And then he thought, I need to give the carrot to Silver the rabbit So he opened the hutch, and do you remember, what did he put in the hutch? That's right, he put the bone in the hutch, didn't he? So he opened the door, found the bone, looked surprised, took the bone out and gave Silver the carrot. Now who was the bone for? The bone was for Scruffy the dog. So he said to Scruffy, after our walk, you can have your bone. And he put it down, picked up the ball and took Scruffy for a lovely walk around the park. And they played with the ball too. Mr. Dandelion threw the ball for Scruffy to chase after. When they came home, Scruffy enjoyed his bone and Mr. Dandelion made himself a nice cup of tea. And he said to himself, I'm definitely going to stop rushing around. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story and I hope you're ready for bed. I'll maybe see you again on EYFS at home. Bye for now.